The crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead as I stood in the back of our company's grand ballroom, watching my father approach the podium. My heart pounded against my ribs, though I kept my expression carefully neutral. After 15 years of working my way up from the warehouse floor, surely today would be different. Surely they'd finally see me. Welcome everyone to Meditech's 30th anniversary celebration. My father's voice boomed through the speakers. Today marks not just 3 decades of innovation in medical device manufacturing, but a new chapter in our family's legacy. I shifted in my designer suit, the one I'd splurged on specifically for this occasion, and tried to ignore the knowing looks from our board members. They'd been whispering about this moment for weeks, ever since my sister Olivia had returned from her 2-year, finding herself trip around Europe with a sudden interest in the family business. As many of you know, my father continued, I've been considering the future of Meditech's leadership. This company was built on family values, on trust, on natural talent. He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd before deliberately skipping over me. And today, I'm thrilled to announce that talent has come home. My stomach dropped. No, this couldn't be happening. Please join me in welcoming Meditech's new CEO, my daughter Olivia Parker. The room erupted in applause as my 26-year-old sister practically bounced onto the stage, her perfectly styled hair catching the light. She hadn't spent a single day working in our company, hadn't attended a single board meeting, hadn't even finished her business degree before dropping out to discover herself in Bali. Meanwhile, I'd spent the last 15 years building our international division from the ground up, increasing our revenue by 300%, and establishing partnerships with the top hospitals in Asia. I'd worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed my personal life, and earned an MBA with honors, all while being told I needed more experience before taking on leadership roles. Speech, speech, the crowd chanted, and Olivia giggled into the microphone. Oh gosh, I'm so honored, she gushed. When Daddy called me in Paris last month and said it was time for me to take my rightful place, I just knew it was destiny. I felt bile rise in my throat. Last month. She'd been appointed last month while I was in Singapore closing our biggest deal to date. A server appeared at my elbow, holding out a small card. Your new business cards, Miss Parker. I took the card with trembling fingers, already knowing what I'd find. Sure enough, beneath our company logo and my name was my new title. Administrative Support Staff. Don't worry, Sarah, my father's voice made me jump. I hadn't even noticed him approach. Olivia will need someone to handle the day-to-day details while she focuses on the big picture. You've always been good with paperwork. The dismissal in his tone made my blood boil. 15 years of dedication reduced to fetching coffee and filing reports for my younger sister, who couldn't tell a balance sheet from a birthday card. Congratulations, I managed to say, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I'm sure Olivia will do great things for the company. My father's eyes narrowed slightly at my calm tone. He'd expected tears, pleading, maybe even a public scene. That's what Olivia would have done. But I wasn't Olivia. Just remember your place, he said quietly. Don't make this difficult. I smiled, thinking of the encrypted laptop in my home office and the countless nights I'd spent preparing for exactly this moment. I wouldn't dream of it. He nodded, apparently satisfied, and turned away to rejoin the celebration. He didn't notice me slipping my phone from my pocket, didn't see me send a pre-written text. Plan Phoenix is a go. Within seconds, my phone buzzed with responses from key contacts across Asia, hospital administrators, suppliers, research partners. All the relationships I'd carefully cultivated over the years. All the contracts that were technically signed with my personal consulting company rather than Meditech directly. Another buzz. This one from James Chen, my old mentor from business school, who now ran the largest venture capital firm in Singapore. Documents received. Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Everything's ready. I took one last look around the ballroom. Olivia was holding court near the champagne fountain, already talking about redecorating the executive office. My father was beaming proudly beside her, probably relieved he finally found a way to keep his favorite daughter close to home. The board members were clustered in small groups, some looking concerned about the future of their investments, others too afraid of losing my father's favor to speak up. None of them had any idea what was coming. I'd spent the last 5 years building a parallel company in Asia, using my knowledge of the industry and my extensive network to create something revolutionary. While everyone at Meditech thought I was just managing our Asian partnerships, I was actually developing next-generation medical devices that would make our current product line obsolete. Every late night, every missed holiday, every condescending comment from my father about needing to prove myself. It had all been leading to this moment. I'd known, deep down, that they'd never see me as more than the reliable daughter, the backup plan, the one who would silently support Olivia's inevitable ascension to the throne. So I'd built my own kingdom. Tomorrow, while Olivia was probably nursing a champagne hangover and planning office furniture upgrades, I would be announced as the CEO of Phoenix Medical Technologies, backed by $500 million in venture capital and strategic partnerships with the top 5 hospital groups in Asia. My phone buzzed again. The PR firm confirmed that tomorrow's press release was ready to go. Phoenix Medical Technologies revolutionizes the medical device industry with breakthrough technology. I smiled, picturing my father's face when he realized that his reliable, quiet, administrative daughter had just become his biggest competitor. The contracts he thought were secured. They'd all be switching to Phoenix within months. The innovation pipeline he bragged about, empty because all the real breakthroughs had been developed under my other company's banner. Sarah, Olivia's voice cut through my thoughts. Be a dear and grab me another champagne. And maybe start working on my schedule for next week. I'm thinking we'll need lots of meetings so I can learn all this boring business stuff. I picked up a champagne flute from a passing waiter and handed it to her with a smile. Of course. Anything else? She waved me away, already turning back to her admirers. That's all for now. Oh, and maybe start cleaning out your office? I think I want to use that space for a meditation room. Don't worry, I said softly, more to myself than to her. I won't be needing that office anymore. As I walked out of the ballroom, head held high, I felt lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow they'd learn that the daughter they had underestimated had quietly built an empire of her own. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from my assistant at Phoenix. Shanghai Stock Exchange confirmed. IPO filing complete. Game on. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, dressed in my sharpest suit. The cleaning crew was still erasing evidence of last night's celebration, and the lobby was quiet except for the gentle hum of computers starting up for the day. I walked to my soon-to-be former office, taking in the familiar sight of the awards I'd won from Meditech displayed on the walls. Sales excellence, innovation leadership, international business development, all achievements that had somehow never been quite good enough for my father. My assistant Jenny was already at her desk. She was one of the few people who knew about Phoenix, having helped me manage both roles for the past 3 years. Everything's ready, she said quietly, handing me a stack of papers. The press release goes live in 30 minutes. Your resignation letter is on top. I nodded, scanning the letter one last time. It was polite, professional, and gave no hint of what was about to happen. Has Olivia arrived yet? Jenny smirked. No, but she called to say she'll be in around 11. She's having a creative breakfast to brainstorm new company colors. Perfect. I gathered my personal items, just a small box, as most of my real work had been done from my home office for years. You know what to do next. She nodded, already packing up her own things. My resignation goes in right after yours. I start at Phoenix's Singapore office next week. I smiled, grateful for her loyalty. First-class tickets are booked. You'll love the apartment we've arranged. As I walked toward my father's office, I passed the conference room where the board meeting would be held in a few hours. They'd be gathering to discuss Olivia's vision for the company's future. By then, Phoenix's announcement would have hit the news, and Meditech's stock would be in freefall. My father was already at his desk, reading through some papers with a frown. He looked up as I entered, his expression darkening slightly. Sarah, I hope you're here to tell me you've accepted your new role. I placed my resignation letter on his desk. Actually, I'm here to tell you I'm leaving. He barely glanced at the letter. Don't be dramatic. Where else would you go? This company is your life. No, I said calmly. This company was your life. I've built something else. Before he could respond, his computer chimed with a news alert. Then another, and another. I watched as he clicked on the first link, his face draining of color as he read the headline. Phoenix Medical Technologies announces revolutionary new product line, backed by $500 million investment. His eyes scanned the article, growing wider as he reached the part about the CEO. My name. My photo. My company. "What have you done?" he whispered. "I built something of my own," I replied. "Something better than what you've built here. Those partnerships in Asia you were so proud of, they're moving to Phoenix. Those innovations you've been promising shareholders, they're going to be launched under my banner." He stood up so quickly his chair crashed against the wall. "You stole from us. You used our contacts, our resources." "No," I cut him off. "I used my contacts, my resources. Everything was done legally, ethically, and completely separately from Meditech. Check the contracts if you don't believe me. Your lawyers will find everything in order." His face was turning purple with rage. "I'll sue you. I'll destroy you. You'll do nothing," I said firmly, "because any attack on Phoenix will only expose how badly you've mismanaged Meditech. How you appointed an unqualified CEO based on favoritism rather than merit. How you drove away your most experienced executive because you couldn't see past your own bias." The truth of my words hit him like a physical blow. He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older than his years. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Would you have listened? When have you ever really listened to me?" As if on cue, Olivia burst into the office, her face pale. "Daddy, have you seen the news? Everyone's calling about some company in Asia. They're saying our stock is crashing." I picked up my box of belongings and headed for the door. "Good luck with everything, Olivia. I'm sure you'll figure it out eventually." "Wait," my father called as I reached the doorway. "You can't just leave. We're family." I turned back one last time, meeting his eyes steadily. "You're right, we are family. And families are supposed to support each other, believe in each other, see each other's value. Let me know when you're ready to do that." Then I walked out, head held high, leaving behind the sound of Olivia's panicked questions and my father's heavy silence. Outside, a sleek black car was waiting to take me to the airport. My new board of directors was expecting me in Singapore, and I had an empire to run. 6 months after my departure from Meditech, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Singapore office, watching the sunset paint the skyline in shades of gold and pink. The view still took my breath away, though not as much as the latest financial reports sitting on my desk. Phoenix Medical Technologies had exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Our innovative product line was revolutionizing patient care across Asia, and expansion into European markets was ahead of schedule. The company's valuation had tripled since our IPO, while Meditech's stock had plummeted by 60%. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Parker, your sister is trying to reach you again. That's the 5th call today." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Thank you, Jenny. Still no need to put her through." The calls had started about a month ago, growing increasingly frequent as Meditech's situation worsened. First, it was my father's lawyers with thinly veiled threats of litigation. Then came the board members, trying to gauge if a merger might be possible. Now it was Olivia, probably realizing that running a multinational corporation required more than just creative breakfasts and meditation rooms. My phone buzzed with a text from James Chen, my mentor and now chairman of Phoenix's board. "CNN interview went perfectly. You're trending on Twitter. #female founder, #business genius." I smiled, remembering how nervous I'd been about going public with my story. But James had been right. People were fascinated by the narrative of the underestimated daughter who'd quietly built her own empire. Business magazines couldn't get enough of the David versus Goliath angle. Though in this case, David had a Harvard MBA and 15 years of industry experience. Another buzz, this time an email from Meditech's largest hospital client in Japan. Contract termination confirmed. Looking forward to continuing our relationship with Phoenix. I hadn't actively poached any of Meditech's clients. I didn't need to. They were coming to us on their own, drawn by our superior technology and more innovative approach. Each defection was another crack in my father's carefully constructed world, another reminder of his fatal mistake in underestimating me. "Miss Parker?" Jenny's voice again. "Your father is here." I froze. "Here? In Singapore?" "In the lobby. He's demanding to see you." For a moment, I considered having security escort him out. But that would just prove his point about me being emotional and unprofessional. "Send him up." I moved to my desk, deliberately arranging myself to project confidence and control. The office helped, sleek, modern, with views that made Meditech's headquarters look provincial in comparison. When my father walked in, he looked smaller somehow. The past 6 months had aged him, adding gray to his temples and lines around his eyes. His usual impeccable suit seemed slightly rumpled, as if he'd come straight from the airport. "Sarah," he said, his voice gruff. "Nice view." "Thank you. What brings you to Singapore?" He walked to the windows, staring out at the city below. "Our board meeting this morning, it didn't go well. Shareholders are demanding answers. The stock price," he trailed off, shaking his head. "I'm aware of Meditech's challenges," I said carefully, "but I'm not sure why you're here." He turned to face me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something like respect in his eyes. "I underestimated you. We all did. What you've built here," he gestured around the office. "It's remarkable." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "But that doesn't answer my question." He pulled a folder from his briefcase, placing it on my desk. "We want to propose a merger. Phoenix would be the parent company, of course. You'd have complete control." I opened the folder, scanning the terms. They were surprisingly generous, desperate even. "And Olivia? She resigned last week, said she needed to find herself again." He almost smiled. "Apparently, running a company involves too many spreadsheets and not enough meditation." Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. This couldn't be easy for him, coming to his scorned daughter, hat in hand, asking her to save the company he built. "The merger would make sense," he continued. "Combined resources, expanded market share. We could be stronger together than apart." I stood up, walking to the window to gather my thoughts. Below, Singapore's business district buzzed with energy, a testament to the new world of opportunities I'd discovered beyond Meditech's shadow. "You know what I remember most about working at Meditech?" I asked, not turning around. "Not the late nights or the deals or even the constant struggle for recognition. I remember sitting in board meetings, watching you beam with pride every time Olivia stopped by to share her latest adventure. She'd interrupt important discussions to show photos from her travels, and you'd act like she was presenting groundbreaking market research." "Sarah." "Meanwhile," I continued, "I was actually doing the market research, building the partnerships, creating the innovations that kept the company growing. But that was just paperwork to you. Details, nothing worthy of real pride." He was quiet for a long moment. "I was wrong." "Yes, you were." I turned to face him. "And now you want me to save you, to merge my success with your failure and pretend none of it happened." "We're still family," he said quietly. "Are we?" "Because families support each other. They recognize each other's worth. They don't spend years dismissing one child's achievements while celebrating another's basic existence." He sank into one of my visitor chairs, suddenly looking every bit his age. "What do you want me to say? That I failed you? That I was blind? That watching you outmaneuver me was the wake-up call I needed?" "I don't want you to say anything," I replied. "I want you to understand something. Phoenix isn't just a company to me. It's proof that I didn't need your approval to succeed. That all those years of being underestimated only made me stronger." I picked up the merger proposal, holding it out to him. "I won't merge with Meditech. Not now, not ever. But I will offer to buy your most valuable patents at a fair price. You can use that money to restructure, to start fresh with a new focus. Maybe even build something worthy of the daughter you still have." He took the folder, his hands trembling slightly. "And what about us? Can we start fresh too?" I sat back down at my desk, thinking of all the family dinners I'd endured, all the achievements that had gone unrecognized, all the times I'd been told to support Olivia's dreams while setting aside my own. "That depends," I said finally. "Are you ready to see me for who I really am? Not just the reliable daughter, not just the one who handles the paperwork, but a leader in my own right?" He nodded slowly, a mix of regret and pride crossing his face. "I already do. Everyone does now. You've made sure of that." As he stood to leave, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, your mother would have been proud. She always said you had a quiet strength that would surprise us all someday." After he left, I stayed at my desk for a long time, watching the city lights come alive as darkness fell. My phone buzzed with updates about Phoenix's latest successes, but for once, I wasn't thinking about business. I was thinking about strength, about family, and about the different ways we prove ourselves in the world. Some people, like Olivia, made noise and demanded attention. Others, like me, built empires quietly, letting success speak for itself. My father had finally learned to listen. The question was I ready to start speaking again? 3 months after my father's visit to Singapore, I found myself back in Boston for the annual Healthcare Innovation Summit. Phoenix was being honored with the Industry Disruptor Award, and I was scheduled to deliver the keynote speech. Standing in my hotel room, adjusting my earrings in the mirror, I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. A year ago, I had been relegated to fetching coffee at Meditech's award ceremony. Now I was headlining the industry's most prestigious event. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Can we meet for coffee before your speech?" "Please." I hesitated. Since her resignation from Meditech, Olivia had been reaching out regularly, her messages ranging from angry accusations to tearful apologies. But something about this one felt different, simpler, more genuine. "Four Seasons Lobby Cafe, 9 a.m., I replied. I had 2 hours before my keynote, and maybe it was time to hear what my sister had to say. When I arrived at the cafe, Olivia was already there, fidgeting with a paper napkin. She looked different, less polished, more real. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. Instead, she wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. "You look good," I said, sliding into the chair across from her. She managed a small smile. "You look amazing. I saw your Forbes cover last week. The Silent Strategist. How Sarah Parker built a billion-dollar empire while no one was watching." That wasn't my chosen headline, I admitted, ordering a coffee. The media loves the whole underdog narrative. "But it's true, isn't it?" Olivia leaned forward. "You built something extraordinary while we were all too self-absorbed to notice." I studied her face, looking for the manipulation I had grown accustomed to, but found only sincerity. "Why did you want to meet, Olivia?" She took a deep breath. "I've been in therapy, after everything. It's been eye-opening, looking back at our family dynamics, how Dad always pitted us against each other, how I bought into the role of the golden child without ever questioning the cost." "And what cost was that?" "Our relationship," she said quietly, "your chance to be seen and valued. My opportunity to actually earn something on my own merit. Dad did us both a disservice, didn't he?" I felt something tight in my chest begin to loosen. Yes, he did. "When I resigned from Meditech," Olivia continued, "everyone assumed I had failed. But the truth is, I was relieved. Being CEO was never my dream. It was Dad's dream for me. I spent so many years trying to be what he wanted that I lost sight of who I actually am." "And who is that?" I asked, genuinely curious. She smiled, reaching into her bag. "Remember when we were kids, before Mom died? How we used to put on plays in the backyard?" She pulled out a playbill from a small community theater. "I've been doing local theater. Small parts, nothing glamorous. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm pursuing something because I love it, not because someone else expects it of me." I picked up the playbill, reading her name in the cast list. Lead role in The Glass Menagerie. That's hardly a small part. "Opening night is next month," she said, hesitating. "I know we have a lot to work through, but I'd really love it if you could come." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a reminder about the keynote. "I have to go," I said, standing up. "The speech." "Of course." Olivia stood too. "I watched your TED talk, by the way, the one about authentic leadership and recognizing talent in unexpected places. It made me think about how many times I took credit for your ideas at Meditech, how I never acknowledged the work you did behind the scenes." "Olivia." "No, let me finish," she interrupted. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel less than, for every achievement I stole, for every moment I played into Dad's favoritism instead of standing up for my sister." I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I had a speech to give. I couldn't afford to get emotional now. "Thank you. That means a lot." "Break a leg with your speech," she said, then added with a small laugh. "That's theater talk. I'm learning all sorts of new things these days." As I walked toward the convention center, I thought about transformation, how success had changed me, how failure had changed Olivia, how we were both finally becoming who we were meant to be. The ballroom was packed when I took the stage, hundreds of industry leaders eager to hear from the woman who had disrupted the medical device market. My father was there too, sitting quietly in the back row. He had asked permission to attend, a small but significant acknowledgement of the new power dynamic between us. Good morning, I began, setting aside my prepared notes. Today, I want to talk about vision, not just the kind that lets us see what's in front of us, but the kind that lets us see what's possible, even when others don't. I caught Olivia's eye as she slipped into a seat near the middle. She gave me a subtle thumbs up, and I felt a smile tugging at my lips. We often think success is about being the loudest voice in a room, about demanding attention and recognition. But sometimes the most powerful moves are made in silence. Sometimes the greatest victories come from being underestimated. For the next hour, I shared my journey, not the sanitized version I usually gave to the media, but the real story of a daughter determined to prove her worth, of a sister learning to step out of the shadows, of a woman turning years of dismissal into fuel for success. The biggest lesson I've learned, I concluded, is that true leadership isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about knowing your worth, even when others don't. It's about building something meaningful, even if you have to do it quietly. And sometimes it's about being strong enough to open the door for reconciliation when success finally forces others to see you clearly. The applause was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was watching my father and sister, sitting separately but wearing matching expressions of pride and regret. We had a long way to go, but maybe this was a start. After the speech, as I was gathering my things, I found a handwritten note on the podium. You were never the coffee runner. You were always the leader. We were just too blind to see it. Dad. I folded the note carefully and tucked it into my pocket next to Olivia's theater playbill. Perhaps it was time to start writing a new chapter in our family's story, one where success wasn't a competition, where redemption was possible, and where each of us could shine in our own way. That evening, before heading back to Singapore, I made 2 calls. The first was to my assistant, asking her to book a flight back to Boston next month for Olivia's opening night. The second was to my father, agreeing to his suggestion of a monthly family dinner, not to discuss business, but to slowly rebuild what we had broken. 1 year later, I stood in the wings of our old family estate's garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The space had been transformed with twinkling lights and elegant table settings for Phoenix Medical Technology's 5-year anniversary celebration. Ready for your speech? Olivia appeared beside me, looking radiant in her emerald evening gown. She'd just returned from a successful theater tour, where her performance had earned critical acclaim. The confidence she found on stage was different from her old artificial bravado. It was genuine, earned through dedication to her craft. Almost, I replied, adjusting my notes. How's Dad holding up? Nervous, she chuckled. He's been practicing his toast all week. Never seen him so worried about getting something right. The past year had brought changes none of us could have predicted. After Meditech's restructuring, our father had surprised everyone by enrolling in a master's program in biomedical engineering. If I'm going to serve on Phoenix's advisory board, he'd said, I want to actually understand the innovation, not just the business side. The string quartet began playing, signaling guests to take their seats. The garden filled with investors, partners, and employees from around the world, all gathered to celebrate Phoenix's journey from upstart to industry leader. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, please welcome Phoenix Medical Technology's founder and CEO, Sarah Parker. As I walked to the podium, I caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd. James Chen, my mentor, sat with his wife and daughters. Jenny, now our Global Operations Director, had believed in Phoenix from the start. Even some former Meditech board members were present, those who had eventually apologized for their past dismissiveness. 5 years ago, I stood in a very different garden, watching my dreams of leading my family's company dissolve into nothing. That moment could have broken me. Instead, it became the foundation for something far greater than I could have imagined. I saw my father in the front row, nodding slightly. He aged differently in the past year, not from stress or bitterness, but from the humbling process of starting over, of learning to see both his daughters with new eyes. Phoenix's success isn't just measured in market share or innovation patents. It's measured in the lives we touched, the patients benefiting from our technologies, the employees who've grown with us, and yes, even the relationships that have been transformed along the way. Olivia caught my eye and smiled. Last month, she had launched a theater program for Phoenix employees' children, combining her passion for performance with her newfound appreciation for the business world. Everyone deserves a chance to shine, she'd said. I just needed to find my own spotlight instead of stealing yours. They say success is the best revenge, I continued, but I've learned it can also be the best teacher. It can show us who we really are, who others really are, and most importantly, that it's never too late for change. I gestured to my father to join me at the podium. He stood, straightening his tie nervously before walking up. This moment had been his idea, a public acknowledgement of both his past mistakes and our new beginning. When Sarah first left Meditech, he began, his voice thick with emotion. I thought she was being spiteful, trying to hurt our family business. I couldn't have been more wrong. She wasn't trying to hurt anything, she was building something. Something better than I ever built because she understood what I had forgotten. That true success comes from valuing people for who they are, not who we want them to be. He turned to face me directly. I spent years missing the incredible leader right in front of me, trying to force your sister into a role that was clearly meant for you. But you never let my blindness define you. You took every dismissal, every underestimation, and turned it into fuel for your vision. Tears threatened, but I held them back. This wasn't a moment for sadness, it was a moment of triumph, of healing, of new beginnings. Today, he continued, I'm not just proud of Phoenix's success. I'm proud of both my daughters. Sarah, for having the strength to build her own path when I closed the one she deserved. And Olivia, for having the courage to find her true calling, even when it meant disappointing my expectations. Olivia joined us at the podium, completing our family circle. The audience watched in respectful silence as years of pain and misunderstanding transformed into something new. The future of Phoenix is bright, I said, raising my glass. Not just because of our innovations or our market position, but because we've learned the most important lesson in both business and family. That true strength comes from recognizing and nurturing the unique talents of each person. The celebration continued late into the night. I watched my father deep in conversation with James Chen about Phoenix's latest research developments, his eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. Olivia entertained a group of international partners with stories from her theater tours, finally comfortable being herself instead of who she thought she needed to be. Later, as the party wound down, I found myself back in the quiet of the garden, the same garden where years ago I felt invisible and undervalued. Now it was filled with the warmth of genuine success and reconciliation. Quite a night, my father said, joining me by the rose bushes my mother had planted decades ago. Your mother would have loved this. She would have, I agreed, though I think she knew all along this would happen someday. He nodded thoughtfully. She always said you had her spirit, quiet but unstoppable. I should have listened. We can't change the past, I said, thinking of all the years we'd lost to pride and misunderstanding. But we can keep building a better future. Speaking of building, he pulled out a small box. I have something for you. I found it in your mother's old papers while cleaning out my office at Meditech. Inside was a delicate silver compass, its face slightly tarnished but still beautiful. A note in my mother's handwriting read, For Sarah, because true north isn't always where others tell you to look. She left it for you before she died, my father explained. Asked him to give it to you when you found your path. I think she knew, even then, that your journey would be different from what I had planned.